the habitation where the Sea Org members live is extensively cameraed, and they're all fenced. They all have motion detectors on top of the fences, and all the fences are touch sensitive. If the fence is touched, it sets off an alarm and lets them know the location that the fence was touched at.
Incredible.
They have motion detectors on top of all the fences, which can detect somebody trying to come over the fence. And they're covered by video cameras. And if you go by any Scientology property and just get out of your car and get out and actually look at the building, look at the top corners of the buildings,
yeah,
you're going to see lots of cameras.
Yeah.
So these cameras have a dual purpose. The church will tell you it's to keep unwanted people out of their property, and that they've had some problems in the past. Well, in my opinion, the real reason all those cameras are there is to keep the staff in line,
yeah,
and to control the staff not deviating one step off their appointed path.
Yeah.
And I actually had an example of that one day when I was new.
New to the Sea Org.
New to the Sea Org, I took an unauthorized break. I was on a way somewhere, and I popped into a store, got a can of soft drink, and came out and stood on the sidewalk and drank the drink. I'd say a total of about 4 minutes. And I had a security guard come up to me as I was approaching, after I disposed of the can and was on my way again to where I was going. I had a security guard coming from the opposite direction approach me and ask me about going into that store and getting a drink, and that could only have been seen on a video camera, on a security camera.
You know, you wonder what they're thinking. Is you're doing a dead drop or something, or there's a brush pass or something. You know, it's just, there seems to be like a paranoia.
You know, Tom, it is Big Brother. It's George Orwell, 1984.
Yeah.
It's a church.
Is it a church?
It's a church that runs a Big Brother operation on their staff, is what it is.
Yeah.
And I wondered, when I was a public Scientologist, that means somebody who's just a parishioner, who's not a staff member. When I say public, I mean somebody who's not staff. In 1984-5 is when the security force of the church was put in place. The first place I saw it was in Los Angeles, and they started doing bicycle patrols. They weren't armed, but they had handcuffs, and they had mace, and they had radios, and they were basically
handcuffs.
Yeah, they had handcuffs, and they have mace, and they have ways to handle people until they can call the police. And they were, we were told that they were to reduce the crime around our organizations, which would make our organizations a safer space for our parishioners. Well, over the years, over a 24-year period now, the security force has evolved to be something else, and a lot of their function now is to monitor staff and to monitor how the staff are doing and what they're thinking, and is there any disaffection among staff, and who's not doing so good, who's grumbling, who's grumpy, who's causing waves or sowing disaffection amongst other staff, and that they've actually, their attention is very much on the staff and somewhat on the environment.
Yeah, so they're more like a internal police than they are really security guards. They're really more of an internal police force to monitor staff attitudes and staff conduct and staff behaviors.
Conduct, behavior, and production levels, and they work hand in hand with the ethics people. It's very much a military organization.
What's this ethics? Okay, you said ethics people. What does that mean in practice?
In practice, they keep everybody in line. They keep, for a public Scientologist, when they go see the ethics officer, they're going to work with the person to eliminate from their life anything that's a distraction, that's keeping them from being happy and productive and doing well in Scientology. That might be involvement in any kind of activity that would be unsavory, like looking at pornography or engaging in unethical business practices, or anything that a person might kind of feel like they had to withhold from people and not talk about. So the MAA or the Master at Arms is going to, or the ethics people are going to they're supposed to be there to help you not get into that kind of trouble.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, don't they purport to be able to deliver counseling which handles people's problems and aberrations and things like that. So one would think that if this stuff is really that effective, that they could handle somebody's, let's say, compulsion to look at pornography. But since there's no internet access, how are they going to access the pornography anyway? Well, other than going into one of these stores.
This kind of leads into another area, but the staff at the advanced organization, which is right across the street from Coachman Park, in that big building that has a restaurant at the lower end.
Yeah.
It says Religious Retreat, and it says Sandcastle on it. In that big building there are several hundred staff members who deliver the top levels of Scientology on the planet. The operating thetan levels, which means an operating spiritual being.
Okay.
And at that organization, my wife was posted to work as a director of processing. So she worked in a department that worked with people's auditing. And in that building, you also have ethics people. Well, the way the staff talks about the public Scientology people behind their backs is completely outrageous. All the contents of your counseling sessions are supposed to be highly confidential.
Yeah.
However, somehow a lot of that material winds up being talked about by the staff behind their back.
Yeah.
In staff meetings or just casually, and people laugh about things people have divulged in session. Personal secrets, sexual problems or sexual deviations that they're into, or things that they're into that are discreditable, like child molestation or something like that. And a lot of the staff are laughing about the public behind their back. And even at the highest levels of Scientology, you're still dealing with staff treating public as if they are expecting them to be bad. They're expecting them to misbehave. They're expecting them to get in trouble. And in fact, they do. And even people on what's the second to the highest level is called OT7. And at that level, you still have people forced to come in every 6 months, go in session with an auditor usually for at least 10 or 12 hours over a period of a few days, divulge everything that's happened in confession.
This is called a security check, which is essentially an electronic interrogation.
It's a confession. It's a confessional aided by a very sensitive meter, which the counselors are trained. I'm very highly trained. I'm flag trained in how to operate.
What's flag training?
Flag training is the highest level of training on the planet. Okay, I'm a graduate of the professional metering course at Flag, which is basically everything in Clearwater is Flag.
Okay.
It comes from a naval term which means the flagship is the ship that carries the admiral.
Okay.
And when Flag was on board a ship, it was where L. Ron Hubbard was. It was the Commodore of the Sea Org. Yeah. So when they came ashore, they still called it Flag. That's where that comes from.
Okay.